So good afternoon, everyone, and great to have you all joining us. As you may be aware, we run online safety events from time to time, and we're delighted this afternoon to have Janine Cranston joining us. Janine from Nexus NI. So we're delighted to have this webinar specifically for those working with primary school age children in classroom settings. So you're all very welcome indeed. And shout out to her colleague Jan Winton, and Jan helped us just get organised today, and also our colleagues within the Child Protection Support Services and Children and Young People Services within the Education Authority for helping us send out email invites. So as you can see, we are recording today's session and we will send out the recording next week at some point. So we're very much focusing just on the content of today's session. So you'll see that we have just turned off the microphones and the videos, also the chat. But if there is time at the end, we will open that up and we will be sharing contact details and some links at the end, and also a very brief feedback form. And we would really encourage you to complete the feedback form at the end of the webinar, and this will support further events like this. So your feedback is really valuable. So with that said, delighted to pass over to Janine. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Esther. Okay, so as Esther has very kindly said, my name is Janine and I work in Nexus. So I'm hoping you maybe already have a bit of an idea of what Nexus does. So I work within the early intervention and prevention services, but essentially Nexus is the main kind of remit of Nexus is providing support, counselling services to anyone who's been affected by any form of domestic and sexual abuse. But as well as that, we do a lot of work in terms of awareness raising. We do lots of different types of training. We do workshops for adults. We also do workshops for young people between the ages of 11 to 25. And if anyone is ever interested in what we do, or if you want a bit more information about the training, I will put details up at the end on the slides if you do want to get in contact with us. So I want to say, first of all, it's not long now until the end of term. I think it's maybe just around 2 weeks. So thank you very much for actually joining on today. We appreciate that. Things towards the end of term is can be quite tiring. So what we're going to look at today, essentially I'm going to be talking to you through this PowerPoint presentation. We know that there are a lot of different warnings, risks and threats to young people online. So what we're really going to be looking at today, though, is about how influencers affect our young people online. This is a broad overview of a complex and evolving area. So we know that there's potential benefits to young people going online, and none of our training is ever about saying for young people not to go online. It's about understanding the risks that they can encounter. So you may have heard of things such as online scams, cyberbullying, image-based abuse, financial abuse, child sexual exploitation and abuse online, fake news, young people seeing inappropriate content or being contacted by people that they do not know. There could be other issues like the amount of time a young person is spending online, in-game spending as well. So there's a huge array of different issues. But today what we're going to be looking at is, as I say, specifically around the online influencers. So I'm giving you just straight away at the beginning a little bit of a content warning. So we will be talking today around concepts such as misogyny, rape culture, and it's important that if anything does upset you today, if you are triggered by any of our content, know that the Domestic and Sexual Abuse Helpline, which Nexus operates, is available for you 24/7, 365, either as an individual, but also as a professional. And the number is up there on the screen. So what we're going to look at today is, first of all, why is this topic important? Why is the topic of online influencing important? So we're going to discuss a little bit about who an influencer is, the positive and negative sides of influencing, how it works, because we know, essentially asking the question, why does somebody follow somebody else online? So there's a lot of psychological elements around that. Things like that fear of missing out, that FOMO, but also social identity and social proof. So it's getting that validation through various likes and shares whenever you post content online. We're going to talk a little bit about certain influencers and their impact, but also about how do we respond to online influencers whenever they're spreading those harmful narratives. So the first couple of slides I'm going to show you here are going to be some stats. And some of these stats obviously involve primary school children and secondary school children as well. So this is taken from Ofcom. 96% of children aged 5 to 7 are going online. And once children reach the age of 12 to 15, it's more than 99% of them are online. 97% of British children aged 5 to 15 are using video sharing platforms. And then that was in 2020. And one of the, obviously, one of the big issues of why this is important that we understand this is that children by their age are vulnerable, but also by their stage in their development. So they may not have the same critical thinking skills in order to understand and navigate their way through the online world. So a couple of other stats for you, 8 to 17-year-olds. So 40% of that age group admit to having given a fake age to get access to a news site or an app. But particularly, a lot of the social media platforms out there, their minimum age requirements is 13. But what we also know, and again, this is taken from Ofcom, is that over 50% of children under the age of 13 are already using social media sites and apps. On top of that, there's data coming out now in relation to that younger primary school age. And there's a higher proportion of that 5 to 7-year-olds who now are not just going online, they have their own profiles on specific social media platforms, and that has increased from last year to this year. Just to give you a couple of more stats around this, this is taken from an organization that's really good to be aware of called internetmatters.org. So they have lots of different resources online as well, and we'll give you some information around that towards the end of the webinar. So what they are saying is that 50%, and this is specifically for children aged 5 to 7, 50% are watching live streaming apps or sites. 65% are sending messages or making video and voice calls. And the most popular app that these young people are visiting is YouTube. So the parents' concerns at the minute for this age group tend to be around how much screen time young people are using, but also nearly 3/4 of parents were worried about their children being contacted by strangers. And children say that being contacted by strangers is the second most common experience they face online. But as well as that, over 3/4 of parents are also very concerned about online bullying. So again, why is this important? So we know that young people they're going online, they're using social media platforms. But what we have seen, particularly over the past few years, is this real surge in online misogyny. So we will talk about misogyny in a bit more detail in a second. So if young people are online, especially if they are on sites that are live streaming, they may see inappropriate content and they may see this online misogyny. But what we've also noticed is like that higher kind of teenage group, that 16 to 24-year-olds, they are actually now saying social media is where they get their news from. So we've got to bear in mind that so that we know they're accessing it, we know that they're accessing it, that's what they're using nowadays for their news. And we also know that there's been this increase in online misogyny. We have been asked by schools to come in and talk about misogyny as well. So it is something that we need to be aware of. So what is an influencer? That's the kind of the first real question here. And why do we need to know about them? So an influencer is essentially, it's somebody who has a large following, who has got a presence online. So we're looking at people who've got those 1 million plus followers. So what they are doing is they are promoting behaviors, ideas, products to the people who are following them. You will know if you've been online that there's influencers for so many topics online. So there's fashion, beauty bloggers, gamers, all sorts of things. And what's the kind of difference between what an influencer posts and what maybe a celebrity posts is that influencers, what they will be doing is something called trying to establish a parasocial relationship effect. So they will share information, intimate details of their lives, and that is building up that emotional connection. So it fosters loyalty and trust. So the followers begin to feel as if they know this person. So what they will do is if this person, the influencer, if they make a recommendation, it's going to feel more like getting advice from a friend than getting some sort of sales pitch. But what we also know about influencers is that they have, because they've got such a reach in terms of the number of people who are following them, they're emerging as key players in shaping popular culture. So it's now their influence is extending beyond fashion and lifestyle and looking more, they're beginning to penetrate into our attitudes and our behaviors as well. So this means that influencers have got those big, big follower bases. They have the power to set trends and influence consumer choices as well. So it is as I said, it's an evolving field. But we need to be aware of the influencers out there. And straight away, want to highlight there can be some really, really good influencers out there, some really good role models, one of which is Marcus Rashford. So he was a Manchester United and England footballer. And you might remember that during COVID, he campaigned very successfully and highlighted the issue around child poverty and child school meals as well. Another one that you may not have heard of is a lady called Alex Light. So Alex, basically, she started off as a beauty and fashion blogger, but then began to share her own experiences around eating disorders, diet culture, and so on. And then her platforms basically changed into being a safe space for people to discuss their issues around body image and so on. But unfortunately, just as a lot of influencers can be brilliant role models, influencers can have a negative effect as well. So some influencers may be encouraging what we would see as unsafe and unhealthy behaviors and views. A lot of the information that is being put online um, may be false, it may be incorrect, and it may be misleading. So some of the things that you may have heard about in terms of like false information being online or different trends that can promote those unhealthy behaviors, you may have heard of something called looks maxing. So this is the young males who want to kind of conform to a particular image of a male that they see as being attractive. So the somebody who is essentially chiseled, who's muscular, and so on, and they believe that that is what an attractive man should look like. So some of the things that may happen is using facial fitness gum to make themselves look more chiseled, bone smashing, which is horrendous. And all of this can lead to mental health and physical health concerns, but also there's issues around the ethics around someone promoting these ideas. So just to talk a little bit about false information, because this again is important because a lot of influencers, because of their large following, if they post something that isn't correct, that can spread very, very quickly. So we talk about disinformation and misinformation. So disinformation is a deliberate lie, and that's what we know as fake news. Misinformation is whenever somebody shares information that isn't correct, but they believe it to be true. For all of us, it can be very difficult, and especially for young children, it can be very difficult to assess whether information online is actually false information. So just to give you a couple examples of this, we'll not go into too much detail, but it's to kind of give you an idea of how quick and how far-reaching fake news can spread. So this is about the Southport attack in last summer in 2024. So there was several false claims made around that incident. So the first one we've put up there is from Europe Invasion, who are saying that this is whenever the news was just breaking, that a man had attacked a nursery in Southport, stabbed 6 children, one child died, and the attacker is alleged to be a Muslim immigrant. Now, that post was seen by close to 4 million viewers. The information was incorrect. Police had already issued a statement, or it issued shortly afterwards, that the suspect was born in Cardiff. However, even despite that statement being released, people still continued to share that information. Other posts actually included a name that wasn't the name of the actual suspect in the case. And in one of those, by within several hours, that post had received over 6 million impressions. So again, it's just to show how quickly this can actually, this fake news can actually spread across the internet. There was another account that appeared to be a trusted news source. However, that also included the misinformation regarding the identity of the suspect. And then Andrew Tate got involved. So Andrew Tate, as you will know, is a controversial influencer, but he has a huge following online. It's around 10 million. So he also then posted a video referring to the attacker as an illegal migrant, and that post gained over 15 million views. So we're going to just talk quickly about who are the influencers who are spreading these harmful narratives. And as I said, we're looking at those who are that misogynistic influencer. So we would define that as somebody who is spreading misogyny online and is targeting and influencing young men and boys. So misogyny is someone who believes that women are less important than men or have a feeling of hate or distrust towards women. And somebody who is sharing those views or says or does things that shows that prejudice towards women, then we would say that they're being misogynistic. Now, you may have heard of this term. This is the manosphere. And this is something that is getting more awareness being drawn to it. So the manosphere is essentially a collection of communities online that are broadcasting aggressive views about women. So it's a loose confederation of influencers. And it can vary. Some can be include like self-improvement advice, but then there can be casual misogyny right through to violent misogyny. So just to give you a little bit more detail about this, there's various different types of communities within the manosphere. And whenever we are talking about this, I'm going to highlight two particular categories here: the men's rights activists and incels. So incels we're going to talk about in a bit more detail in a minute. But the men's rights activists, that again, that initially kind of started out as communities trying to combat perceived inequalities against men. So things such as focusing around custody and divorce outcomes, or around mental health issues and stigma with men. However, it's now kind of expanded out. So it kind of ranges from that through to extreme anti-feminists. And what basically is happening is that real world challenges that boys and men are facing, it's now what the manosphere does is kind of like turn that around to blame women, essentially. So, and it's seen as it's combating against female empowerment, all of that equality that's taken decades to kind of gain. It's a pushback against that. So there are different types of misogynistic influencers, but as we mentioned them already, we'll mention them again. Andrew Tate. So he is a former kickboxing champion, and he's now an influencer who says he promotes fitness, wealth building, dating advice, and so on. As you probably have heard in the news, he has been charged with various offences in Romania, including rape, human trafficking, organised crimes, and he denies the allegations. Was initially banned from some major platforms, but goes back on X, previously Twitter, and again has over 10 million followers. What he also has done, and he's a self-proclaimed misogynist, He has also formed what is known as the Brev Party. He's trying to establish a political party called the Brev Party. So Britain restoring underlying values. However, some of these values that he is discussing is wanting to include values such as aggressive masculinity in business and so on. So again, this is something just to be aware of that young people may come across. But there's been various self-help gurus inspired by Andrew Tate, and they offer advice, all of this in inverted commas, to millions of boys and men about how to act towards women and girls to ensure women are compliant and well behaved. Got a couple of examples up here of self-help self-help gurus, and again, very much in inverted commas. The first one you see on the screen there is someone who refers to himself as Toxic Rob. So he uploads videos and jokes about his views on relationships, dating, and rough sex. And he has said things about such as wanting to put his hand around women's throats and dominating women. So again, there's Conor Prackard is up there as well, and he will say things like women want to be with a superior, and leadership falls within that. Men lead and women follow. So just to kind of like tie in with that, this concept of toxic masculinity. So essentially, what toxic masculinity is whenever traditional kind of male stereotypes, their attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors are taken to an extreme. So and obviously that is why it's becoming toxic, because it have a real negative effect on boys and men as well as the whole of society. But it's things like rules of what a man should look like, rules around what a man, or how a man should act, discussions around domination and aggression as well. So what it might be seen as is that unconditional physical toughness, that need to be an alpha, but also things like suppressing your emotions and making anyone who shows vulnerability, making that shameful. So you may have heard various expressions like "man up," real men don't back down. On the other side of the coin, what we also have is a concept now known as misandry. So this is on the same harmful coin as misogyny, and both are rooted in negative gender stereotypes. So some of the things, this is discussed less frequently, but it can be harmful as well. So what will be happening here is that there could be mocking towards men, ridiculing men for expressing their vulnerability or dismissing their interests as being inferior. It can also be like generalized kind of statements of saying things like all men are violent, all men don't have that emotional capability. So it's one of the reasons that we highlight this is because we know that throughout their lifetime, 1 in 7 men will be a victim of domestic abuse. So we never want to dismiss male victims of any kind of domestic abuse or sexual harassment and so on, or having an implication that they're less credible or deserving. But as well as that, what we want to do is we want to not be encouraging those negative stereotypes. And we don't ever as well want to exclude men from discussions and activities based on the belief that they're less capable or less deserving of inclusion. So again, it's just really about, well, as I said, it's not as well known as misogyny. It can and does exist. But what we definitely don't want is for any male victims to feel as if they're not able to make a report or discuss what has happened to them. But I really want to talk to you about this particular type of misogyny. It's probably the most extreme type of misogyny that you might come across online. And they're called online influencers called incels. So these are a community online that refer to themselves as an incel. It's a hybrid of someone who is involuntary celibate. So this is somebody who wants to be in a relationship, but believes that they're not able to form that romantic or sexual relationship. So whenever we're thinking about incels, what we need to just be aware of is some of their characteristics. So what incels are believing is that there are reasons external to themselves of why they're not able to gain a romantic relationships. So they would see individuals who are, shall we say, what society kind of deems as being attractive. So they see Chads and Stacys essentially as the reason why they are not in a relationship. So Chads, so that is the men who the incels believe are sexually satisfying, they're charismatic, they're confident, and they're musculars. And Stacey's are the stereotypical attractive women who reject incels' sexual advances. So they look outside as opposed to looking for other reasons, but they also blame societal structures as well. Whenever we're thinking about incels, you may have heard of that terminology recently because of the Netflix series Adolescence with the wonderful Stephen Graham and Jack Thorne. So again, this was a really hard-hitting drama, and it shows the murder by a young boy on his female classmate. So just to kind of let you know, that was obviously a fictional drama. Safeline, this is a charity. They were saying that the dark journey that adolescents Jimmy Miller went through was not fiction. It reflects very real patterns that they observe in their work. So some of the dangers with incels. So incels, you may have heard maybe more from the US, the American perspective. So there is this promotion of violence and endorsements of a violence against women who they perceive as being sexually successful. So there has been shooting incidents in the US, and there has been a shooting incident in the UK as well. Around this incel movement. But as well, because it's a very insular community online, that can also lead to reinforcement of extreme beliefs, potentially radicalizing members towards harmful actions. But as well as that, for those who are on these forums, there's high levels around depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation as well. So as well as the incels, we also have femcells. So femcells is essentially the female equivalent. So they, however, they're very different groups. So femcells believe that they're invisible due to their appearance, which doesn't fit with the beauty-centric misogynistic culture online, as they say it. However, they're a peaceful community. They tend to blame themselves as opposed to blame others. So just to mention this very, very quickly, then we'll go on because I'm just conscious of time, folks. You may have, I'm not sure if you've heard of this term of trad wife. So this is a much more subtle way the misogyny can come into the online world. So this is basically women who are saying that they are adhering to traditional gender roles and trying to develop that perfect at home homemaker. However, what they are doing, the values that they are looking at are those back in the 1950s. And at that point, we have to remember that things were very, very different. Domestic violence wasn't taken seriously. There was no, women didn't have the right to birth control, to credit cards, etc. So it was a very, very different time. So how do we respond to harmful online influencers? One of the big things, and again, this is very relevant why with all of you attending today, is around that education and awareness. And we understand that online safety is a massive, massive topic. It's involving and it changes a lot, and it can be very hard to try to keep up with it. But we need to have education programs in schools to help children, young people understand the dangers of misogyny and also know what they can do in order to have that support as well. So we want to have that education and awareness. We want to have that encouraging that open communications, but as well promoting that critical digital literacy online for young people as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about support for victims shortly. So for young people, we use the acronym TREND. So think, resist pressure, encourage kindness, notify the platform, and discuss with someone you trust. So try not to, it's very difficult, obviously, with young people in terms of the stage of development, and brain is still obviously developing until they're 24, 25. But again, that impulse control is something we have to be aware of, but kind of trying to promote that kindness. And it's okay that no is not an option, or even if it's just, if somebody has said something on a platform, it's not immediately liking that or sharing it. That can be a really good way to try to intervene and combat this type of narrative online. As teachers, as you know, you are great positive role models for both boys and girls. How you govern the class as well can have a real impact. And of course, you need the support, resources, and training around this to help as well. So I just want to finish off about this other concept that is called tonic masculinity. So this is the kind of the counter to the toxic masculinity. So this is somebody who is purposefully spreading positive messages. And one of the examples that we refer to is Dr. Alex George. You may have heard of him whenever he was on Love Island, but he's also a medical doctor, and he has been appointed the UK Youth Mental Health Ambassador in 2021. So he advocates and educates the public on a variety of topics, and he essentially breaks all stereotypes by combining his medical background and reality TV appearances, demonstrating that you can be impactful. So I want to show you this one little video. It's only a couple of minutes long, but I just want to let you know that there's quite a lot of language in this clip. So I'm giving you that language alert. It has been bleeped out, but you're going to get the gist of it anyway. So I'll start the video now. It's only a couple of minutes, and it's from a gentleman known as Daniel Slosh.
Apologies, I'm not sure if the audio is coming through to me. It's not doesn't seem to be coming through for me. It was earlier, Janine, when we tested.
Thank you for letting me know, guys. That's brilliant. Thank you. We'll just go back into it now. Let me know if you can hear it now. As well, this gives me.
97% of rapists will not spend a single day in jail.
Can we hear that, Esther? Yeah, perfect.
That is a real statistic. That is abhorrent. So how do we fix that? How does society, how do we fix this? How do we stop this happening? It's all I've been thinking about for the past year, over and over and over again. How do you fix this? How do you stop this? How do you prevent this from happening? And I've got no answers, man. The only thing I can think of is it has to involve us. And by us, I mean men. Now, to the women in the room, I know you know this. None of this is new information to you. You've lived your life, you've got your experiences, and your voices are more important and necessary in this discussion than mine. That being said, I would still like to lend my voice to the discussion. And to the men in the room, I want to make something crystal clear. This isn't an attack. I'm not accusing you of anything. And more importantly, I'm not accusing your friends of anything. I'm just trying to tell you my experience, and this is my experience. I knew this man for 8 years, and he did it. There are monsters amongst us and they look like us. If you are sick of the narrative that is currently going on about men, feel free to change it, but you have to get involved. Don't make the same mistake I did for years, which was just sitting back and be like, well, I'm not part of the problem, therefore I must be part of the solution, because that's just not how this works. I believe, and deep down I know that most men are good, or of course we are, but when 1 in 10 men and the other 9 do nothing, they might as well not be there. Being good on the inside counts for absolutely all. You have to actively be good and get involved. Instead of having this hero complex of being like, I'm going to beat up a rapist, prevent one, stop one, because I know it can be done, because I know how I failed at it. Because if I'm being 100% honest with myself, were there signs in my friend's behaviour over the years towards women that I ignored? The answer is yes. And then he raped my friend, and that's on me until the day I die. Talk to your boys, get involved.
Okay. So that's the end of the presentation, folks. So as I said, what Daniel essentially is just saying there is that we need to get involved. So I've just up in the slide there is just some information about Nexus and also then some further support services. So I'm going to stop sharing now, Esther. That's me done. I know I've gone over by a few minutes.
No, you're absolutely fine. Janine, thank you so much. Covered such a lot of content there, and believe it will be very helpful to those who've joined. I'm just going to pop in the chat a little link to a Google Doc with some of the links that Jan has provided, and some other bits and pieces of content, curriculum resources from SIA that you're probably aware of, and also from Common Sense Media around that whole topic of digital citizenship, digital literacy. So you can have a look at some of that content. And I'm also going to put in the chat here a link to the feedback form. So we are a little ahead of time, I think, actually. So there will be time for you to complete this very brief form. There's only actually a couple of questions that are required regarding the content, and then just your own details. So really appreciate if you could fill that in, and that will help, as I say, inform future sessions that we're planning. But thanks again to Janine so much. If you do have questions in the last 3 minutes that you would like to pop in the chat, you can feel free to do that, or just give your feedback in the form. But thank you indeed for joining today.
Okay. Yes, Julie, I'm sure Esther can sort that for you if I get a recording via email, Esther.
Yes, all being well. We'll be sending those out to schools next week.
Listen, good luck until you get to the end of term, guys. Holidays are nearly there. I can see, is it Marie-Therese Cullen has got a hand up. Did you want to ask a question? Maybe not. Maybe that's an old one.
It might have been.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for letting me know. You're welcome, guys. Thank you for the lovely comments. Thank you. Just make sure you put them on the evaluation form. I'm joking. Don't worry.
Yes, Derek, no problem. We'll be sending out the recording. Well, if there aren't any questions at this point, we will end the session, thanking you, Janine, again, and wishing you all the very best, everyone, for the term and for the summer.
For the summer.
Yes. Thank you now.
Thanks, Esther.
Thanks. Bye.